budget knives can be hard to trust, especially from new companies that you may not have heard of before. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You see some new knife that looks cool online, the price is right, the materials appear to be what you look for at this price. They might even be better than what you expected. But then you look at the brand name and the doubt sets in. The internal voice that maybe you should wait, that maybe you should watch some reviews online to bolster your confidence. But you search on YouTube and you find nothing. Do you pull the trigger or do you let it slide? I'm Rollshambo, and today we aim to answer that question on a new knife from a new knife company that you may not have heard of before. This is the Fintiso Cobra series. Let's check it out. Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, make sure to smack the like button on the way in. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And today I'm excited to talk about a new brand that I've never checked out before. I've been reviewing a ton of knives lately, and so it's nice to get a new face, a new brand, a new logo on the screen. I meant what I said in the intro. When it comes to new budget brands, it's really hard to have faith. So being able to have an opportunity to check out a knife from a new company like Fintiso is great. Thank you to them for sending this my way. That's full disclosure. They reached out to me and they said, hey, we want to see what you think of our new lineup for our new brand. Let us know. So they did send this my way, but they're still going to get my full, unbiased opinion and review on this knife. Having never checked out one of their knives before, figured I'd go ahead and give you guys a bit of an unboxing experience. It feels nice. It actually gives off Kaiser vibes for one of the Kaiser premium knives as far as the quality of the box. It has this nice slip that goes over the top with the reflective foil logo, and then we have a magnetic clasp here on the side. Inside we have a standard issue pouch, which I'll be honest, these typically end up in a drawer in my office, but it is in fact nice to have it all the same in case you decide to take it with you on a trip. Inside we get a cleaning cloth, a sticker, and then also the most important thing, the knife. This is the Fintiso Cobra series. And I've had it for a few days now, and I've done a cut test. I've carried it a bit. I've checked it out in the pocket. I've tested the factory edge, and I have some thoughts. But first of all, let's start off with some basic specs and pricing. We're looking at an overall length about 7.5 inches, which is ideal for most people's everyday carry. It's a nice in-between between a large knife and a full-size knife, and I think that it's going to fit a lot of people's hands because of that. I have average to large-sized hands as far as an American man is concerned. I wear a medium to large-size glove, and that is average. Ergos on here are great, and that is thanks to these contoured 6061 aluminum handle scales. It also features a geared 6061 aluminum backspacer, a slanted deep carry pocket clip, T8 pivot with a single-sided captive pivot running on ceramic bearings. It's nice. 14C blade, 6061 contoured aluminum handle scales, blue hardware, which is definitely a choice. Now, they have this specific model, the Cobra series, in a couple different variations. They also have it in contoured G10, and they also have it in contoured carbon fiber and S35 VN. But if you go for that option, instead of paying $59 like you will for this one or one of the G10 versions, for the more premium version, you will pay close to $140. For the lock, we're looking at a standard plunge lock design. There is no lock stick. I have not experienced any lock stick, and it of course does pass the regular light tapping test. I haven't got the lock to fail with some regular light taps used to simulate just randomly knocking into stuff. And I don't do harder because honestly, I don't really see myself hammering the spine of this blade into anything on a day-to-day basis. So I think that that test itself is just a little bit ambiguous for my tastes. Deployment happens in two manners. You have the flipper tab, and then of course you also have the deployment hole which you can also thumb flick. The insides of the handle scales have been milled out for some extra weight reduction, which explains why it comes in at a very attractive 3.7 ounces. So for those ratio people out there, this has actually got some pretty good ratios. The blade shape is what's considered a shilling cutter. Now, I'm going to be psychic here for a moment. I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, Rollshambo, that looks very similar to a Vostede nightshade. And if I'm right, and you were just thinking that, make sure you smash the like button. I'm not, in fact, psychic, but that was my thoughts initially when I saw pictures of this online. But I did notice that there are a few key differences. For example, this is the Vostede Mini Nightshade, and you can see that while the blade shapes are similar, there's a lot more of an aggressive drop on the Mini Nightshade than there is on the Cobra series. The handle scales are also a bit different, even though they do both simulate almost a bit of a sway back design, more so in the Cobra series than you get in the Mini Nightshade. So I would liken the similarities between these two knives more like we were comparing two drop point knives. While they are similar, they are also definitely different. And so saying that they're the same thing or one's a clone of the other is just really not necessarily all that relevant, especially considering that even the Nightshade looks very similar to the Fox Chillin'. So yeah, for one, I would actually love to see more knives with this blade shape. The Shilling cutter is actually a classical Taiwanese blade shape design, and while we have thousands and thousands of drop points and tantos and straight backs, I would love to see more with the Shilling cutter, because while it has a downward angle, it makes it really good for staying in the cut, and it makes for a very nice utility cutting knife. In fact, I did a cut test on this going through some double-walled cardboard, and it cuts great. It cuts just like you would expect. Every time I see a Shilling cutter style blade, I know that it's going to be slicey and it's going to get the job done, no problem. But I will say this, 14C does scratch a bit easier. They target 58 to 62, and that means that most of the time they're going to be coming in with a Rockwell of 59 to 60 on this. So for the satin blades, do expect those to scratch if you put them through some use. And if that's a big no-no for you, the good news is that they do have coated blade options for this. So if that's something that bothers you, if you don't like getting scratches on your blade, I would definitely suggest going for one that has the coated blade. This knife performed the cut test like an absolute champ. I didn't have any hangups. It glided through the cardboard material, no muss, no fuss, and it was created pretty much the experience that I expected. Again, with the Shilling cutters, it's going to blow through just about any material you put in front of it because of its aggressively bellied blade shape, especially considering that the blade tip itself is pointing down. It stays thick all the way to the tip, and so you've got great reinforcement on this blade, and of course it gets nice and slicey here behind the edge. Aside from that, there are actually quite a few things that I really enjoy on this knife. The first is going to be the backspacer. You should know that backspacers are my preference over barrel spacers. The contoured handle scales mean that you get some great ergonomics, and part of that is the fact that we have very good jimping here on the spine of the blade. I wish that many of my more expensive knives featured jimping just like this. Once you're in, you're locked in, and you can feel that grip on the pad of your thumb when you go to do that. So that's nice. That jimping shows that at the very least they know people want to have more control over their cuts. So if that's something that you're a fan of, it definitely has it. The jimping is definitely a plus. I also really like this pocket clip design, the way that it actually goes off to the side here. And that's because it fits specifically in the side of your pocket, kind of where your pocket goes into that U bend. And that's nice because it will line the side of your pocket and leave the rest of it easy to access things like pocket trash. You know, if you're one of those people that carries a pry bar, maybe you carry a wallet, maybe you've got a EDC coin, EDC trash. Many of us carry it, and this is nice because it's not going to get in the way of any of that. It's going to rest up on the inside of your pocket and slide and disappear in there because this angle will nicely match the angle of your pocket and stay out of the way the entire time. We have a very aggressive dip here on the pocket clip itself, which lends to some good retention as well. But there are a few things that I would recommend to change on this design if they were to go ahead and do a version 2. The first thing is something that is kind of annoying, and that is the flipper tab. Because this is a plunge button lock style design, it does not have a ceramic detent ball. It is relying on the pressure between the plunge lock and the tang of the blade to create that detent. And just like with many button lock knives, this one doesn't have much of a detent, which means that if you're just doing a casual push button on that flipper tab, it's going to fail, or at least it has a high likelihood of failing unless you include some wrist action. In fact, the deployment hole is 100% the way that I would go, whether you are thumb flicking or reverse flicking, just use the deployment hole. On a version 2, I'd like to see them delete that flipper tab or do a version in a frame lock or in a liner lock, a lock type that gives us a real detent ball to load up some pressure behind that flipper tab so that we can get some competent flips going. If you care about it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't care about it, well, this next thing you might care about. That is the T6 body screws. It does have a T8 pivot, and the T6 screws in the pocket clip itself are recessed, which is nice because it reduces the chance that it will snag on stuff going in and out of the pocket. However, I've stripped way too many screws and T6 bits fooling around with this type of hardware. I would prefer at a minimum T8 hardware all around because it reduces the amount of bits that you need to take out, and it's also a more robust style of bit because you have more surface to make connection with between the bit and the screw. Ultimately, I think that considering that Fintiso is a new brand, they did really well. They thought about things that people cared about. They gave us the backspacer. They recessed the pocket clip screws. They made it easy to access other stuff in our pocket, and the ergos are really good. They went with a button lock, which is all the craze these days, and I like button locks. They're not my favorite, but I do like them, and I think that for an EDC utility cutter, this is going to be one of those jacks of all trades. It's going to get the job done and won't leave you stranded. But you let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. What do you think of the Fintiso Cobra series? Are you going to pick one up? If not, why not? Let's have that discussion. And by the way, if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, make sure to click on one of the videos that pops up next.